of the zones, going all over the metro area from southwest out, not only the west side, but also the downtown and out east side, especially today. That is a nice change. My biggest concern is with the line 12 getting split, reduced service from Tiger Transit to Park Rose, and having the new lines from Sherwood to Tiger and from Park Rose to Gresham. I live south of Tiger Transit Center, and since I go all over the metro area, I do enough transferring as it is. It's going from whether I'm going to Beaverton, taking a couple of different lines, or whether I'm going out to the east side, 2 or 3. Unfortunately, today I was had to go transfer once from downtown Fulham to the Green Line and out here. That was nice. Most of my days, however, are not so simple, and I'm just concerned about one extra transfer at Tigard and having to arrange my schedule a little bit, take more time, going from my apartment to my work or to other places. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Don McGillivray.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I think TriMet is a very good system, and I have used it almost exclusively now for the last 20 years. And again, the changes will not affect me because I'm over 65. So, but again, I'm very much concerned about the people that I see on the bus, and just in general the system. I think the one zone is fine. I think the $5 is fine. But again, the $250 for a two-hour transfer to me is greatly too little. It needs to be at least 4 or 5 hours in order to really serve the people that need to be served. There are many people that are transit dependent. There are many people that go relatively short distances. 2 hours, 2 hours is very little time when you're using the bus. The bus basically takes 3 times the time to use a bus that it does to use an automobile. So again, most people that use that two-hour transfer are going to go someplace, and they aren't going to be able to get back without getting another $2 ticket. So what's the point? And again, I'd also like to. Very much interested in urban planning and have been an advocate for TriMet for some time, but it always seems like that the funding situation gets in the way. TriMet has raised fares on transit now for virtually every year, if not every 2 years. And it started out at, I think, 35 cents in the early 70s, and is now up to 8 times that amount. And it's nickel and diming people every year or every other year. And why would this change any of that? This essentially the same thing is going to continue to happen as long as the funding system is the way it is. And obviously the legislature has essentially put limits on the payroll tax. So that's not really available to increase, although it does increase in a very small amount every year, or will for the next few years. But so that basically leaves the fares, and the fares basically then hurt the people least able to afford it. And there's a lot of people, low-income people, that don't have jobs, that are short of food, short of health care, don't have health care. Just lots of needs out there in transit. Those are the folks that are dependent on transit, and so this basically doesn't work for them.
Thank you, Mr. McGillivray. Thank you. Mr. Kevin Douglas.
Right here. Just give me a second. First thing I'll let you guys know, I appreciate the fact that you're going to a one-fare zone. I feel it's more fair to people. I'm an advocate for the drivers and what they have to go through in enforcing those zones, trust me. My biggest concerns I'd like to address with Mr. Bett's issues with the LIFT program. I myself use the LIFT program. I live on line 28, which doesn't have service on weekends. And when I originally started with the LIFT program 13 years ago, The only time I could use it was when the bus wasn't running. I think if you guys were to go to a hybrid program like that where you meet Mr. Beck's needs, and my needs to be able to get around on weekends, where I do a lot of volunteer work, when our buses aren't running to that area, and then allowing us to use it if the buses are running would be a way of possibly meeting that need. I also understand you guys have to do the lift, raise the fares on the program. At first I thought that was kind of bad until I had a $55 trip out to Hillsborough Airport last summer. I'm a volunteer out at the Hillsborough Air Show. And on weekends, that's when I use the lift program, as well as many of my friends. Another issue I have with trying to, I'm going to keep this short, is I'm sick and tired of hearing management blame the drivers for the problems. When was the last time you were trying to management taking a 10% pay cut, and you guys are complaining about the drivers? The drivers have to put up with a lot of manure, and you don't see managers out on the bus. Mr. Walsh, years ago, would actually come out on the 28 and talk to passengers, and I haven't seen Fred Hansen or Neil McFarland anywhere near Milwaukee in the last few years. Overall, you guys have got a great system. Just don't ruin it. I grew up in Europe as an Army brat, and trying to definitely make some improvements. But my biggest concerns are the lift program, and as well as keeping the other services going. And please don't cut the drivers' pay. Those guys have to put up with more stuff than whatnot, and they're the backbone of the company. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Art Llewellyn.
Well, I guess I'm going to say that this is pretty readable material you've got here. If you're able to get through it, that's a good sign for me. Clearly understandable, or at least somewhat clearly understandable. I am a supporter of a max expansion. I mentioned, well, that's important. And I know when I come before a testimony, I try not to speak just for myself, but as I'm part of a demographic of people who, I can say some percentage that's more than just individual. As for the rerouting of the lines you've proposed, looks like you maybe improved it. Looks like. You have a little more study. It looks like they're improving. And I know you're trying to find costs, but if you can improve the service and find cost savings, good. I think it's a little about money. I live downtown. I watch free rail zone get used. I was supportive of buses not being in part of the free rail zone system when that came up. That was an efficiency and improvement. I see periods in the weekend especially, but during events where lots of people just find that ability to jump on so convenient and surprisingly, genuine and unique, and not just a nicety. It's what helps the system work. That's the way I'm looking at it. It works. People use it, and so I'm never ruling out free rail zone downtown being coming back. Its decision's already been made. Never rule it out coming back. I'll be on your side with the kind of work you're doing here with this, looking for savings, and keep expanding the MAX and the streetcar system. Nice, and then you'll get a better system overall. We have to look in the future decades, and we drive too much. And so the option of taking a good mass transit means it has to be built first. And I think the buses will work better when they are working together with the rail system. And for the streetcar, I would say leave it out of fair to some. We can come to that decision about it. But West Side, it's needed. People are using it, and it's why we have a transit system. We do whatever we can to make it work. And that's one that not only works, but has to be a part of transit systems overall around the country.
Thank you, Mr. Llewellyn.
So that's my 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Miss Allison Santos.
I'm glad that I'm here. I miss Mr. Hanson. I can't tell you how much. I met him at our state capitol as general manager, and then he became, actually he was in general services, and then he became general manager for TriMet. I have submitted an application for reauthorization for lift transportation. I have a congenital deformity, and I submitted my application and went through all kinds of hoops and acrobatics and so on down in the Pearl with a number of different folks from your staff. And my lift transportation wasn't reauthorized. And I've been in my car, living in the back of my car for about the last 10 months with my companion pet. I've never taken her on Max or a bus because I did hear of a dog that lost its life from another dog. And I didn't want to risk her. She's my little girl. She's now 12. But I'm concerned. I've had to use your customer satisfaction line at Pioneer Courthouse Square a few times in access. I'm considered permanently disabled finally now. Judge Charles Evans authorized my Social Security. I felt privileged to be in his courtroom, and the two doctors that helped him to get through my mountains of medical files. I'm not quite 60. It's truly been an education for me, this process of reauthorization and what you're doing here. I can see with lenses, and I see an eye doctor, and he's one of the best through Providence. But I really have issues that require that sometimes I use a bicycle, and I'm not sure I can still lift it now, but I also need the bus transportation, and the Max is great. I'm a little insecure when I ride the newer Max lines, just because they feel a little more metally than the others, and I don't know how else to put that.
Thank you, Ms. Santos.
Well,
Thank you.
and thank you for your time. I hope I can make the Beaverton hearing.
Thank you. We'll see you there.
And I'll submit something written at that one.
I would like. Good. Well, welcome. I'd like to briefly introduce you to Mr. Steve Clark, a member of the TriMet board as well.
Thank you.
Would you introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Clark. I represent the west side of Portland and southwest Portland on the board of directors.
Thank you. We have one last person who has signed up to speak today, Ms. Kathy Wetzel.
Hi, thank you. I'm here representing the people that are on Bus 36 and Bus 37. It's the one that goes to Lake Oswego. I work in the medical field, and a couple of us depend on getting to work at 7 o'clock. It's been a great bus, comes on time. Love to see if you guys can keep it there. And then sometimes at the latest, I'm off at 5. But more and more every morning, there are more and more people getting on. Could probably get rid of the 36 and just do the 37 going back and forth to the transit center. Other than that, there is another bus that I do take. It's and I'm having problems getting connections now ever since this big transition that's going on, and that's a concern I have. I take 3 buses. I go from 33 to 35, and it's kind of nice. We used to got on the 33, dump me down at the Oregon City Transit Center, and I would get right onto the 35, and 35 would take me into Lake Oswego, and I'd stop, have coffee, jump on 36. It was great. But now that with the changes, it's all juggled, and it's taking me almost 2 hours. Not real happy about it. I appreciate what you guys can do. I know that there's a lot of people without cars, and this economy really has taken a toll on everybody. So I'm trying to cut out my driving because that's since been unemployed, and trying to suffer for it. Especially on TriMet. My dad was on the board about TriMet. We need super stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. McFarlane, welcome.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce you also to Neil McFarlane, the General Manager of TriMet.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
I understand that everyone who has signed up to speak has had the opportunity to speak today. Is there anyone else who would like to make some comments? All right. Why don't we could take a 15-minute break, come back in about 15 minutes, and we'll take it from there. Thank you. I'm an independent third-party neutral contracted by TriMet to serve as your hearings officer today. Joining me here from TriMet are Neil McFarlane, the General Manager of TriMet, and also Bruce Warner, TriMet board member. Welcome. The purpose of today's hearing is to provide you, the community TriMet serves, with an opportunity to comment on the proposed fare and service changes. This is the second of 5 public hearings TriMet is holding on the issue. These hearings will be part of the public record, and they're being recorded. If you wish to speak here today, please sign in at the table at the entrance. And I see that several of you have already signed in to provide testimony. If you did not sign in, you will not have the opportunity to speak today. If you wish to provide written comments, you may fill out a comment card and leave it at the sign-in table. You may also deliver your comments by regular mail, email, fax, or telephone. Contact information is available at the sign-in table. To be included in this feedback phase, please submit your comments to TriMet by no later than April 6th. I will call you in the order that you signed in today. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will keep track of your time. Please be respectful of others in the room and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Because this is a public hearing designed to collect your comments, we will not have the opportunity for feedback from the table. And I will end this hearing promptly at 6:30. This is an important issue, and I see that we have a lot of people here today, all with important information to share. It's possible that we may not have enough time to accommodate everyone who wishes to speak. If that happens, I invite you to write your comments on a comment card or to speak directly with any of the TriMet staff who are here today. You may also send an email or a fax to TriMet after today's hearing. This phase of the feedback period ends on April 6th. At that time, TriMet staff will review and analyze all of the information received from these hearings. Based on that information, the current proposal may be further revised and then submitted to the TriMet Board of Directors for their consideration. TriMet board meetings will be held on April 25th and May 23rd. The public comment period extends through these board meetings. Then any approved fare or service changes will take effect in September 2012. I'd like to introduce you to another TriMet board member who just joined us, Mr. Craig Prosser. Welcome. And now I'd like to introduce you to someone sitting with me. I'm not sure which one it will be. Okay, Mr. McFarlane, thank you, who will provide some background to the proposed fare and service changes, the refined proposal, and the next steps in the review process. Copies of the revised proposal are available for you in the sign-in table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall, and thank you everybody who's here. I really do want to thank you. I know there are many, despite the rain, many things that many of you could be doing other than coming here. Your time, your comments, and your input to TriMet's plans for the next fiscal year are Very much appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Board President Warner and Board Member Foster for being here as well. And I would also note there are many members of the TriMet staff here who also are available to answer questions. As you know, this was really formatted to deal with a $12 to $17 million shortfall that TriMet faces in its budget year. And this is for a number of reasons. It's lower than expected employer payroll taxes, anticipated cuts in federal funding, and unsustainable union health care costs. And during the last 4 months, we shared a variety of cost-saving and revenue-generating options and asked for the public input. And that input has been very valuable to us in getting to where we are today. And we look forward to your comments and your input as we move forward here. More than 3,000 people have actually provided more than 8,000 comments and suggestions. If you are one of those along the way, we thank you for that. And I think this revised proposal indicates that we listened. We, based on all of this feedback and recommendations from the board and our budget task force, we refined this proposal. And as Ms. Marshall said, copies of that refined proposal are on the table if you haven't seen it. You'll see that we scaled back the service cuts we initially proposed. Most of the savings needed to balance the budget will come from a proposed fare increase and the elimination of free rail zone. And many riders told us they could tolerate a fare increase. I choose that word always very carefully, not supporting a tolerated fare increase if it prevented more service cuts. We're also proposing a flat fare that eliminates the zones. We're also I just might note that we're never happy about raising fares. That's not something that we really like to do, particularly as proposed here. But changing to this flat fare, we think, mitigates some of the impact, and it's simply revenue needed to balance the budget and to avoid other service cuts. Our initial proposal also called for $500,000 in administrative cuts, and LC may increase that to $1.2 million. Because again, we heard from you how important it was to preserve service. These cuts will cause layoffs and some program reductions. So as you can imagine, getting the math right while balancing the diverse needs that you bring to us, our riders, is a huge challenge. I wanted to assure you that we're absolutely committed to doing the best job we can with the resources we're provided. And in that regard, your wisdom and your counsel and your ideas are very important and very necessary as we move forward. So again, thank you all for being here.
Okay, thank you. First person I'd like to invite up to the microphone to provide testimony is Mr. Joe Walicki. After Mr. Walicki, we'd like Mr. Tom Carson.
Okay, thank you, Joe Walicki. Joe Walicki from Beaverton. I drove TriMet bus for about 6 years. Been retired now about 3 years. Thanks for this opportunity. On the increased generating measures, the flat fare, I support that. Eliminating the free rail zone, I support that. Ads on the TriMet website, that's fine. But on the transit tracker, I vote no, because most people, when they're on the phone, they want to do it fast, and they have to listen to a bunch of ads, then it might interfere with them running to the bus. So my vote on that one is no. On reconfiguring the bus routes, the bus routes I know very well are Beaverton, because I drove out of the Merlo garage. I support the changes you've made. I think they're logical, and it's a good idea. The other ones, F and G, I'm not familiar with. I want to make 2 points that may have some effect on the budget. I would urge an expanded volunteer program specifically having volunteers go on max lines to be information people with a vest that would, besides give people information, would also possibly lower any kind of mischievous things that the people are doing, but having visible people on there, and it might cut down on some of the fare inspectors. But that would have to be a revamped volunteer program, so you might want to take a look at that. Another thing, the final thing on that may have a budget impact is, I've always been concerned about runs being cut in the morning when the driver doesn't show up at a garage. And there's always a few extra drivers around, extra board drivers, but sometimes there's not enough. So I would urge you to look at what the frequency of runs that are cut in the morning, which means that people who are waiting for a bus to get to work have no bus to come by because there's no drivers, the regular driver or the extra board drivers. And I don't know if there's been an increase of runs cut or a decrease, but Neil, I hope you take a look at that carefully and make sure that there's enough extra board drivers to take those runs that a regular driver couldn't make because he was sick or something happened to him. Other than that, thanks a lot. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carson, and after Mr. Carson, I'd like to hear from Mr. Joe Schweitz.
I'm Mr. Carson. I'm with Beaverton. My point of view at this point is for you people to tighten up your operating procedures kind of a thing. I have 3 tickets here that are good for 3 hours each. That's not supposed to be according to the standard of TriMet. As an adult, all zones, even though I pay handicap fare for them, I don't know, just people start marking properly, that kind of a thing. I have an issue with the MAX trains. Every time they come to a stop, they open all the doors. All that wonderful heated air goes, and air conditioning or whatever it is kind of a thing, which means we have to do it all over again before the next stop, so on and so forth, kind of a thing. It comes down to the point where it's like, the big items, if you want to save a little bit of money, I don't know how much a ticket machine costs on the MAX platform, but there's 5 of them over at the transit center, 2 of them are on for the West Line. If you want to pay $1 to go on the West Line and take a trip, you can't do it on those machines. Right? I don't know why they have 2 of them, if both of them can't do it, kind of a thing. But somebody put 2 machines up there for some reason. Maybe there's a thing of all the West stops, they got to have 2 machines, we don't want cash in them because of security issues, that kind of a thing. Well, that's fine for a general rule, but we have to get more specific into whatever it is, particular situation, because I'm sure that we could do with 4 machines in the transit center. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schweitz, and after Mr. Schweitz, we'd like to hear from Mr. Patrick Stanley.
Joe Schweitz. I live in Tigard, and I commend you for looking at a lot of different options, trying to live within a budget. It's very difficult. I am a retired employee of TriMet, and I do recognize some of the issues that you're going through. I do also recognize some of the things of reconfiguring the bus routes. Makes most sense when you can still serve the general area. However, I must caution some of the things in the planning aspect here that you might destroy some things, especially in the Tigard area and the Gresham area when you're looking at shortlining a number 12 that in history has always run from end to end, from Sherwood to Gresham. Ever since I've been there, and that was over 30 years ago. But I'm just saying that because there is no real transit center with time to transfers in those areas of downtown Tigard and also the park roads, that you got to be more careful on timing for people, otherwise the trips are longer. Plus, in thinking that it's going to run more on time is a very serious issue, of course. However, if you miss the transfers because the bus is running late in the short downtown to Tigard or downtown to Park Roads, then you still got a problem. And so it's a very serious thing to look at. And as far as these other issues, I can see whereby information to the public is very important. However, to put things in that would confuse the issue, like the other gentleman said, it would not be such a good idea. And with that, I conclude by saying continue. It's very difficult, I know, but I know working together with the family of TriMet that the issues will be responded to properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley, please.
I'm Patrick Stanley. I am a student at Portland State University and someone who has studied TriMet as a hobby for 14 years. I would first like to say I very much like the idea of the changes up in Tanasbourne, with the 48 being extended across Cornell, as it is currently impossible to transfer from west of 185th to east of Evergreen. It makes so much more sense. I would suggest for the 43 we propose to decrease service during rush hour. I would just say please review that, because I have seen extra full buses during that time as it is. And please be more clear on the 87 idea of extending that to Gateway as to exactly what that means, because it is kind of vague. I have heard from people along as I've been writing that they would like to have more schedules printed. There is an increased move towards electronic forms of scheduling, but there are many people who do not have access to electronics. Therefore, more schedules. I understand budget-wise is a little tough right now, but let's hopefully get back to printing more of those. And there has been always constant problems with ticket machines. Please emphasize, let's get this ticket machine thing solved so that they are reliable. And what the gentleman said about volunteering, I do agree with that idea. I do believe that there are plenty of people like myself who would be willing to volunteer for that. Let me also say one thing very important is there is about how the budget is designed when it comes to capital projects and operations funds. Your website makes comments on how the funds cannot be transferred between the two. I would like to hear more about that. I would like to have it much more out front. It seems the public does not understand that we can't just take the PMLR project as money from its funds and transfer it to operations. I know there's some funds that TriMet is putting in, but people think that, well, let's just delay the project. It doesn't always work that way, and in this case, that's not very clear that that doesn't work that way. So that's one thing. And also on that point, during doing research, I did uncover information about a bill in the House and the Senate. Also, that, from what I read, was written by our own Senator Wyden in the Senate about being able to transfer funds, changing the law. I haven't heard anything about that from TriMet. I would be interested in hearing a little bit more if you would look into that and see if you can explain that a little bit more in your media details. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch, Andrea Lynch. Then after Ms. Lynch, we'd like to hear from Mr. Stephen Herb.
Hi, Andrea. I wanted to thank you for letting us give our opinions, and I was very pleased to see that you so far have changed your mind about the writing 2 ways on a 2-hour ticket, because I used TriMet a lot to do errands, and that would have been impossible if I had to pay $5 instead of, the proposed $2.50. So I'm glad to see that. However, in this information, I'm also concerned that, well, I understand that you sort of left yourself an out, that if the arbitration doesn't go as you had hoped, that you would scrap that, and all of these changes that you've responded to, you would eliminate possibly. And I'm concerned about that. I think if that is your plan, I'd like to see you maybe propose not so much of a fare increase or something to kind of offset that, rather than to just say to all of us, thank you for your input. But we're just going to have to go back to the way it was at the beginning. So maybe one suggestion I had was that I like the idea of no zones, because I think it is kind of unfair. People pay more because they live farther out. If you could maybe consider averaging the price of a ticket. Right now you're taking your $2.10 and the $2.40 and you're upping everything to $2.50. Maybe doing like $2.25 if you have to go to the only a one-way ticket. Something like that might be a solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hurd, and after Mr. Hurd, we'd like to hear from Ms. Kay Armstrong.
Good afternoon. Hi, Neil. We met yesterday, and board members. Neil, you spoke yesterday at the Washington County Public Forum about creating successful partnerships, and I'm an advocate for that. And I represent the Forest Heights Homeowners Association and the Northwest Heights Neighborhood Association. I know you have financial issues, I know you have challenges and choices, but I'm here to state today that you don't need to overlook the communities that don't have TriMet service at this time, especially in the northwest sector between Cornell, Skyline, and Germantown Road. We don't need to be left behind. We need to be picked up before you plan to expand any further west, as was talked about in your future plans. And we would like to be considered in the next TIP plan for 2012-2013 that you look at reconfiguring line 50, which is an unperforming route, and bringing our community and the other neighborhood associations into that route. I think we have the ridership potential you're looking for, and I'm also here to deliver a handwritten letter to the Board of Directors requesting us to get into that TIP plan. I encourage everything about this forum that's going on right now. I understand your plan is fully baked at this time, and you can't make a lot of adjustments because you have financial issues, but I would like you to look at the bigger picture in the future, okay, especially the Sunset Transit Center that is really overburdened at this time. There is no parking there, as you are well aware of. I encourage you to look for expansion for either parking in that area or bus routes to the Sunset Transit Center, so that, you know, when these parking blocks happen at 7 a.m. in the morning, that other people can go to these other places and then be brought to the transit center there and not go west to pick up other stops that even requires more single trips and more traffic congestion on the highways. So that's my message to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Armstrong, Ms. Kay Armstrong. And after Ms. Armstrong, I'd like to hear from Cindy Casa.
Yeah, I've been with TriMet for 36 years and bus driver for 36 years, and I really do love my job. I do want to thank you. I think the fare that you're doing at $2.50 is a good idea, and getting rid of fareless square finally is a great idea, and I think will probably help with avoiding some of the, riffraff that gets on the trains. So, well, I'm here in defense of the number 89 bus route, the Cornell. It's not a bad idea running it from Sunset Transit Center to Hillsborough, but my concern is you want the last bus at 9, or probably, you said the 9:09 and the 10:03 p.m. to Sunset would be eliminated, the 9:48 and the 10:33 from Sunset would be discontinued. Well, if the 9:05 is the last bus from Sunset, it's, that's too early. That really is. Because you have people coming from Portland State, and then you have more people riding. The days get longer. People are out more in the spring and the summer and the fall. And so I don't know, if you could maybe try to stretch it, leaving after 10 o'clock, because now when I leave at 9:48. I pick up a few people that get on at Sunset High School, and they're going out to Tannisbourne Mall, working out there. And then I pick up, some people coming from, let's say, PCC Rock Creek, going down Bronson, and then, going home Sunset. Well, I mean, how would you like to, if you had to go to Los Angeles, how would you like to have to get on a plane, go to New York City, and then come back and then go to, Los Angeles? So the way it is now, it's pretty convenient. So I'm hoping, you'll consider, an after 10 o'clock, for these people. And also there's a Walmart grocery store that's going to be opening up on Cornell, about 167th and Cornell, and you're going to have people probably out there, having a job there. And also, gas prices are going up. There's more people riding now. And what's going to happen if gas goes to $6-7 a gallon and you've eliminated bus service, and these people are stuck? So I think on this one, I think having it end at 9:05, whatever, I think it's too early. If you could have, 10 o'clock, I think, that would really help. So, and I thank you again for having, the meetings here, because I know you do listen. And we managed to save the 89 before, a couple years ago. So So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For board members, I would just note that Ms. Gazab is a TriMet treasurer, I would say, one of our longest serving and best performing operators, so we're very pleased.
Well, I plan on being around for a while.
Ms. Sadie Taylor.
Hi, my name is Barbara Chapnick. I'm the chair of the Beaverton Bicycle Advisory Committee, but I speak tonight not on behalf of the committee, but as a personal rider on TriMet. I have been commuting for 2 years downtown on the TriMet. I have an annual pass. And I've always thought I couldn't understand the free rail zone anyhow, so I just wanted to make a comment because most people that work downtown, usually their employer sponsors them, and if they come down for shopping, they're going to get in and get out. My experience has been that the people that are getting a free ride are probably needed in the sense that they're homeless, but maybe there should be some other kind of opportunity for them to have a pass. I think it's a good idea to reduce the free rail zone. I wanted to comment especially on the focus that we in our city and our nation are trying to increase and encourage people for active transportation. So it concerns me at this time when the gas prices are going up that we have this kind of stigma that TriMet is raising rates, and it's unfortunate. And I'm wondering if there could be an incremental increase in rates so everybody's not hit so soon. I'm also glad that the honored citizens are going to stay the same. I'm an honored citizen, and when I'm not working and I don't have my annual pass, I will be buying my honored pass. So I'm glad to see that that's staying the same, but I really wanted to encourage some kind of way that we could keep people encouraged to take active transportation. And like the bus driver said, if the gas prices go up and Walmarts are coming in and more jobs are being available for people, we need to have alternative ways for them to get there when maybe they can't even afford car insurance anymore. So we need to be encouraging. So my only point is, what can we do to make this more of a positive aspect to our community and say, it's tough, but we'll do it, and maybe in incremental things, but just alternative ideas. That's really all I wanted to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the purpose of this meeting? I want to be sure with the right meeting.
It's a public hearing on the TriMet budget adjustments.
Adjustments or how to reduce spending or what?
There's a bit of both involved in the proposal, which is outlined in the materials that are at the table now.
Well, I'm going by what I read in the paper, and I thought it said you were looking for ways in order to cut costs.
If you have suggestions for us, we'd be happy to hear those.
Yeah, I have some suggestions for things to think about that nobody will like. I spent 22 and a half years in the bus commutation business. I've ridden public transportation since 1969. I have many thousands of hours and miles under my belt, so I know what the commuter does. I used to work in the private bus industry, though. When the private bus industry used to run many of the routes throughout the United States. And then as the counties began to take over, the first thing that I noticed, like at Golden Gate Transit, Santa Clara Transit, was that they bought new buses, raised the pay for the same bus drivers that left our company, and also hired more supervisors and paid them more money. And the same thing prevails today. The amount of monies they're paying is way out of line. We know all the stuff we read in the paper. We've seen all the different pieces of it there. There's some unfortunate parts that are going to have to take place. And a public transportation system, in my opinion, when it was first set up, was that it's supposed to serve the public. And just like you're hearing testimony from the people here, those 3% that ride it, they need it, or they want it. And so for you to come in and you can't balance it, in my opinion, having come out of the Bay Area, we are no more in a place that need rail here. The demographics are not here for over 50 years. And we shouldn't be spending the money there. We should be spending it on the buses. You can change the routes. You can move the routes. When you have catastrophes, you can reroute. You can do all of that, where the rail can't. I've gone to hearings before, and I asked, what is your speed? What is the average rate on the rail, and many times it's slower than the buses. But we are hooked up in this thing. When I was in D.C. at a transportation committee meeting one time, a fellow told me, I said, why do we have to have the rail? He says, because it's the thing to do. So it's a political thing. It's a money thing. But you really need to be looking at where you're really putting this and how is the customer being served. The rumor now is that people, that in Clackamas, you put the green line through and the crime rate has gone up. It's interesting to me when I suggest to people that they utilize public transportation, how they say, ooh, but I don't want to ride the bus. Now we're seeing all the crime statistics going on the rail. So we don't need to be diversifying and going to two different places. I realize you've committed all this money, but we're going way over the hill. What you're paying to get everything done.
Mr. Cox, thank you.
Was there a time limit?
Oh, we had 3 minutes per
Okay.
person.
Thanks.
You very much.
Hope you think about it. Thank you.
Now, those are all of the people who have signed up to testify today. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide testimony today? Yes. What is your name, please?
Thank you, Taylor. My name is Jim Metzler. I work at Westview High School, and I'm always on bus routes 52 and 89 quite often. And the only concerns I have is, number one, if I'm reading maps properly, the area north of Cornell Road is not going to get any service over the weekend. Because right now, bus 47 does not run on Saturdays or Sundays. And so the way I'm reading the map is you're going to get bus service over Cornell Road on Saturdays and Sundays, but nothing on the weekend covering the Tannisbourne, Oak Hills area. That concerns me for one. And the other thing is I fully support not having bus routes overlap. Like right now, the way I'm looking at it, you're going to have 4 buses. Currently 4 buses you can use right now from Willow Creek up to Tannisbourne. And that's going to be all eliminated. But the concern I have though is if you're going to do that, you need to increase the amount of service on route number 52. Because I can tell you right now, by the time that bus gets to Westview High School, bus 52 is already full for BCC college kids. And now you're going to have no bus service other than 52 between Cornell Road and Tannisbourne. Whereas right now people have 4 options to get to Willow Creek. And my suggestion is to increase the frequency of that 52 to like 15 minutes, every 15 minutes. And maybe every 30 minutes, always at nighttime. But so many times I've been on that 52, especially in the afternoon, to pick up college kids at 2:30, the Westview High School kids at 2:40. And by the time I reach Parkview Boulevard, it's standard only. And now people aren't going to have any other option. And you're going to see so many bus 52 routes saying drop-off only. They're not going to be able to pick up anybody else. Which right now people can take bus 47, 48 to get to Willow Creek, but now they're not going to have that option. So I strongly encourage you, please, definitely makes sense not to have 4 routes cover the same 1 mile stretch of the road. But please consider increasing the frequency on that 52 route. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Armstrong, would you like to speak? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Our 15-minute break is over. We've had a couple more people who signed in and would like to provide some testimony. I'd like to hear from Mr. Bruce Peak, and then after Mr. Peak, I'd like to hear from Mr. J. Ellis. Mr. Peak here?
Okay, so
could I ask you to step up to the microphone so that we can record your comments?
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Bruce Peak. I'm a TriMet employee. To make it very clear, I do not speak for TriMet management. These guys did not coach me. Certainly, I'm not going to be saying things that are going to be very comforting or supportive of their positions. So this has nothing to do with these folks that are here. Do not tell me what to say in any way, shape, or form. The reason I would, first of all, like to thank you for this opportunity to address you in a public forum. And the reason why I'm doing this is there seems to be a misconception out there that the employee benefits are exorbitantly high that we receive as TriMet employees. The fact of the matter is that there have been several different figures mentioned for employee benefits. TriMet Director McFarland told Hispanic News that the average cost of employee benefits was $21,800 per year. TriMet Management has often used the figure of $18,000 per year for employee benefit cost. And recently, Mary Fetch, TriMet spokesperson, told the Northwest Labor Press that the average benefit cost is $16,000 per unionized employee. These numbers are all over the map for a good reason, because they really bear very little relationship to reality. TriMet is forced to, according to law, to provide us employees with benefit statements, and the benefit statement, election confirmation statement that they sent me says that my coverage costs $10,000, and I have the most expensive plan we have. Now, if you add I only have 3 weeks vacation to bring me up to $22,000, I would need 5 dependents and 9 weeks of vacation. The numbers just aren't there, they don't add up, and they don't make sense. Those are kind of written or based on some sort of an estimate. A similar set of numbers was provided by the Cascade Policy Institute 2 years ago when they published the employees' salaries and how much we get for our benefits. They said that my station manager got the same benefit package I do, and I'm sure my station manager makes substantially more than I do and gets a better benefit package. They listed everybody as getting $18,000 a year for benefits, and that number is just simply untenable. It's not true. I'd like to point out that TriMet employee compensation is at the low end of the kind of work that we do. We receive $4.50 an hour less than the Seattle bus drivers do now. They just got a COLA. Their COLA didn't get frozen by their management this year. They made $29.60 an hour. We made $25.13. We made $3 less than UPS drivers. They made $28.17, and $3.75 less than a Teamster semi-truck hauler driver. Their Western States Teamster contracts are a little bit over $29. I understand that TriMet is in financial difficulty, and I think it would be disingenuous for us not to understand how we got here. And one of the ways that we got here was by losing that bond election last year, which came after a year and a half after the negative campaign of browbeating and issuing derogatory statements about TriMet employees.
Mr. Peak?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, the 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, I'm Mr. J. Ellis. I think Mr. Peak brought up a great many points from the union perspective. I'm coming from a rider perspective. Came here wet because I rode TriMet. I think you guys have many convoluting issues that destroy your budgets. It's difficult from an outside person to understand how you go from 17 million to 12 million. You know, I understand that has to do with the federal budget deficit. However, what I would say is the ridership is what makes TriMet great. TriMet is the model of the United States as mass transit. And most of us who are mass transit, we rather buy a loaf of bread than buy another ticket. Now, I am pleased to see the fact that you guys went from the $3 ticket, $5 ticket. You're kind of shoving us all to the $5 ticket. I think mass transit should be less expensive than driving your car by de facto. And I think I understand how convoluted it can get if you get too many tickets. However, I think there should be like I understand the $250 ticket and the $5 ticket, I think there should be like a $2, go everywhere you want to go ticket and a $5 all-day ticket. Because I'm not talking about me, but I just think about some people. I would hate the fact that they can't buy a package of bread or a gallon of milk because they had to go one way or another. It took them a little bit more time because they live on the edge or the fringe. And I know you guys are in a predicament. I can appreciate that. However, the fact that the trouble you guys are in, or TriMet's in, I should say, shouldn't be, and you've been cool about it, but it shouldn't be placed on the back of the people. I would hate to see somebody not getting a package of bread.
Mr. Ellis, thank you.
Because they can't get some.
Thank you very much, everybody. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to provide testimony tonight? Well, I want to thank you all very much for your time and coming out to today's hearing at Beaverton Library. The next hearing will be tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 in downtown Portland at the Portland Building in the auditorium on the second floor. TriMet representatives will be here tonight until 6:30 if you'd like to hang around. Otherwise, I'm adjourning this hearing. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.